Hey everyone, my name is McKenzie and I'm here with Pete Gruber. Thanks everyone for joining us here today. Pretty excited today. I'm pretty excited today because this is now my second week being an official part of Gruber Motor Company, the Gruber Motor Company team. I'm truly grateful and honored to be here. Thank you so much, Pete.
Oh, you're more than welcome.
Some of you may know I've been involved with Gruber Motor Company for about the past 2 years. And during that time, I feel like I've gained so much valuable knowledge that has led to what I feel is really significant personal growth within myself. And much of this experience that I've gained has actually come to me directly through you, through Pete Gruber himself. Thank you for all that.
Oh, you're welcome.
It's been a lot of fun. So I'm really not only talking, you may not be surprised, I'm not only talking about experience and knowledge related to Tesla, but I have learned so much in the past couple of years about business, finances, and even relationships, but also about what kind of a mindset it takes, what type of a mindset it requires, rather, to be successful in not one, but all of those areas. And that's what I wanted to talk about with you here today. No one's surprised by this, but mindset is one of the most widely talked about topics in today's world. You hear about it everywhere. It's written about. There's videos about it. Tons of YouTube stuff. So I want to talk about that today. So many people my age and younger, especially, they really want to know what it takes to be successful. So today, that's what I want to talk about. I want to talk to you about business and just life in general, if that's okay.
Sure.
So the goal of today's discussion is for us to identify key characteristics and attributes that make a successful person, but also talk about what someone needs to do to achieve the personal growth necessary to achieve success. And definitely anybody that's watching, send us in your questions. We're live, so if you send them in, we'll definitely answer them. So you ready? Want to get started?
I'm ready to get started. Yes.
Cool. Okay. So I know that you've had businesses for a long time and you have multiple businesses. How did this all start for you?
The desire to be in business, you mean?
However you
Start
want
there. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, sure.
Well, I don't think everybody is cut out to put in the grueling hard work it requires to be a businessman. It's an enormous time commitment, and it requires a pretty grueling schedule. Cuts into personal life at times. And the trick, I think, is to learn to balance the two, to have some personal life along with all of the things. Heavy time commitment. The way it started for me was I always felt like I wanted to do more. One of those overachiever types that is never satisfied with status quo. Want to do things faster, better, quicker, more, all of that. So I would say that probably encapsulates what motivates and drives me.
Nice. Yeah, I think anybody watching, probably there's some people out there watching right now that can relate to wanting more, right? To a certain extent. Can you talk about any, obviously I look at you as a mentor to me and I have other mentors. Did you have any positive influences or mentors in your life growing up that kind of helped shape you?
Well, yes. What's interesting in life is you usually don't recognize their influence at the time it's occurring. And as you reflect back later, you begin to realize that they did really influence your direction and your goals and where life is taking you. There are a number of people that I've been exposed to that have taken that role. As a kid, for example, I know that there were mentors in my life that took an interest in helping develop and shape my goals, my values, all of that. And to those people, you're eternally grateful. And again, you don't recognize at the time that it's occurring oftentimes, and so you tend to reflect back later on in life.
This makes me think a little bit about how, I don't think I've told you this before, but when I was in fifth grade, I would leave class and I would walk down the street to Main Street in a town called Collinsville, Illinois, where I grew up. But a man by the name of Jerry Forte had a computer shop there, every day as a 11 or 10-year-old boy, I would leave school and go help him in his computer shop.
Right.
And I just realized that's kind of what I've been doing with you guys for the past year or so.
Sure.
So and I know you touched on this, but you've got a lot going on. I like that you brought up balance. I think everybody knows about workaholics and all of that, but how do you balance all this?
Well, work-life balance, yeah, that's an important concept. For example, in my household, my wife likes to watch television. I couldn't stand television. It lowers my IQ while I'm watching it.
Same.
So I end up, we have this compromise. I go in my study and I code, I do work, I research, and so we tend to, we're together, but yet in separate, spaces in our home. Weekends, yeah, I work weekends at times, and it's not a full day, but at the same time, I strike a nice balance, spend time with my grandchildren, with my family, and it's all quality time.
You still make it to all the good yard sales too, right?
Yard sales, yes, I'm a yard sale fanatic, even this late in the game, and it's like treasure hunting, you never know what you're going to find, what somebody's going to let go of. My favorite phrase when I walk up and they ask you, is there anything particular you're looking for? I usually say yes. I want one of those really inexpensive things that's worth a few $100,000 on the Antique Roadshow. Always gets a chuckle.
That's funny because before we talked about, I didn't realize yard sales still go on, but I certainly didn't know how to find them, and so you were telling me about that a little bit today, actually.
Yeah,
pretty cool. So I'm curious about this too. So, what time does your day usually start?
4 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
But in order to do that, you have to get to bed at a reasonable time. So I don't stay up till midnight.
Okay.
I often just go to bed at 7:30, 8 o'clock.
Nice. So what, you get up at 4, and what's your routine kind of like?
Well, even during sleep, sometimes the creative mind wakes up and you're going, oh, I need to jot that down. Next thing you know, I'm in front of the computer and I'm either solving a problem or working on a new one. And
in the middle of the night?
In the middle of the night, yeah.
Nice.
And, then I go back to bed, and it doesn't really affect the quality of my life. In fact, it enhances it, I believe, because, have you ever had a problem during the day?
Of course.
And it's unresolved when you go to sleep. And then you have that aha experience in the middle of the night. That's kind of what happens to me often. I'm problem solving while I'm sleeping, I think.
I think a lot of engineers out there are probably problem solving in their sleep, wouldn't you say?
I would say so, but they don't recognize it, or they don't believe the answers,
Right.
Yeah, if you take advantage of it immediately, then you sometimes come up with an aha experience.
You got to jump on it, though.
You got to jump on it.
When the inspiration comes, you got to get up and handle it right then and there, right?
Exactly.
That's awesome. So your day starts at 4, and you're doing your thing, and eventually you come into your business.
Let's stay there for a moment.
Sure.
I find that, at least with myself, and I'm not trying to create a formula for other people, but
Right.
For me, what works is routines and habit patterns. Most people talk about, oh, I need to exercise, but they'll find every excuse under the sun why that morning they're not going to do it, or that afternoon, or whatever. I find with myself that if I have a steady routine that I stick to religiously, it becomes effortless. It's when I have the option to back out of it that it becomes a tough decision. So every morning I exercise at least an hour.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, same. I was just talking about how I use my lunch break here to go exercise, and how the time constraint of having an hour and a half to be away actually seems to be improving my workouts.
Really?
It's pretty crazy, yeah. So, you're talking about habits and routine. I honestly think that one of the best skills someone can learn is how to form a habit.
Mm-hmm.
So can you talk, I'm curious, since you brought that up, what are the best ways to form a habit? They talk about, you always hear, oh, it takes 21 days to form a habit. Do you believe that?
Well, yeah, it does take some time to ingrain it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's work until it becomes ingrained. There's also another ingredient that I find useful in my life, and that's self-discipline. you have to develop that, especially if you're going to be a peak performer. Oftentimes, you may have to sacrifice. You can't just have anything you want anytime you want it. Although we're wired that way, I think.
I think I was wired that way at some point. Maybe I still am. I don't know.
Yeah.
But no, you're right. You can't.
So self-discipline, I think, is an important ingredient. Give you an example. I'm Bavarian. All right, that's southern Germany. We're the folks that love to drink beer and eat pretzels and
Nice.
dance to oompa music and go in the Alps and go hiking. And, it's a very leisurely lifestyle. But beer is a very large part of that. So I had quit drinking for about 15 years, not because I have a problem with it, but just because I was testing my resolve. That's the other thing I do is I like to test myself to make sure that I'm not getting too attached to anything. So I had been drinking beer for a few years, enjoying the heck out of it, and Hefeweizen, by the way. I don't know if you guys are beer drinkers out there. I'm sure a lot of you are. But the favorite Bavarian beer is a beer called Hefeweizen, which means yeast wheat beer.
Hefeweizen?
Hefe, yeah, Hefe is the yeast, and Weizen is the beer. And it's a smooth beer. It's not very hoppy. It's not very bitter.
Okay.
Anyway, so Saturdays we would go. I would drink a liter of beer, and I enjoyed the heck out of that. And I began to notice that my body is talking to me, and it's telling me things like I'm getting pain in my the joints in my feet. I've got a dull ache back here by a kidney. And I begin to realize that, your body, when it talks to you, it's comparable to your car turning on the oil light. It's not anything that you put a piece of tape over and mask. It's something that you respond to and deal with instead of taking medication, for example. That's where I'm going with that. So anyway, I decided, what am I doing in my life that is not essential? I cut out beer for a month, and all my symptoms went away. So
Really?
I'm not drinking anymore now for probably a year and a half or so. The tough spot's going to be when I go back to Bavaria to see my brother, and we go to a guest house, and everybody is drinking beer. But
At that point, it's
through that.
It's okay, right? At that point, it's just a.
Oh, I can probably pick up one and then put it down again. My problem's going to be is even a half a liter will put me under the table because I haven't drank in a year and a half. But getting back to the original question, self-discipline is a very important part of success, in my opinion. It's something that you constantly have to work on. You have to learn how to sacrifice. Starting these businesses, for example, I couldn't just simply drop everything and go to a Suns game, although I would love to have done that, or to a fancy restaurant. At that point in time, there wasn't any money to do any of that, and sacrifice was a large part of that. I couldn't go out and buy DVDs, for example, or CDs. I loved music.
Wow.
So I would record instead.
You really caught my attention when you said you're very careful not to get too attached to anything, and you make sure that that's not happening, and you test your resolve in a way.
Yeah.
So what are some things that someone, you or anyone, could get too attached to?
Well, it could be a number of things, different categories. Food, for example, drink, definitely. Relationships, there's another one. If you learn to test yourself and test your attachment, you can stay more grounded and centered and not get too weighed out by changes in your life.
Right, because things can change pretty quick, right?
Yeah, they can.
I heard on a podcast not long ago, I think I've shared this with you, but I was listening to this podcast and it was really good. And at one point the speaker said, there's one measurable difference between a pro athlete and an amateur athlete. And it is that pro athletes recover from their mistakes exponentially faster than amateur athletes.
Good point.
Can you talk about that a little bit?
Well, very much so. You have to be able to, after any perceived tragedy, and by the way, always look for the silver lining.
Of course.
Life presents us challenges, and there's a reason for it. You can either melt down, get knocked down, and never get back up, or you can get back up and say, "Where's that silver lining now? There's a message here."
Just keep going, right?
Just keep going. Yes, and our CFO many years ago, Stephen Korf, ended up dying of cancer, unfortunately. Great mind, though. He used to tell me when things got tough here in business, he says, "Peter, you just got to keep on pedaling."
Right. And I know you guys have talked about him before. I know you were very fond of him.
Yeah. Yeah, he was an inspiration in many ways. As our, like we said earlier, there are many mentors in your life. You just have to recognize, look for them,
Right.
and tell them you appreciate them.
Absolutely. I love appreciation. That's one of my favorite habits is I think about what I appreciate pretty much constantly. People, things, places, all of it. So I'm curious. So your day you have obviously a long day. And when your day ends, how do you determine, like when you're thinking to yourself, how do you decide whether or not your day was a success or not at the end of the day?
Well, success is a fairly broad and relative term. Success in business, for example. Were you able to solve problems? Were you able to help the people that you're working with grow through challenges? That's when it becomes rewarding. Initially, most people go in business for a couple of reasons: power and money.
Power and money.
I mean, let's put that on the table. Mine was, I wanted to be a member of the 40-year CEO club.
Really?
At that time, yeah. And I don't think I quite made that, though. But anyway, another one was I wanted to own a Ferrari. Despite
Nice.
the fact that I was starting a business, I had no money. I had alimony and child support. It was, there wasn't any money for that. But I sacrificed everything else in my life to get a Ferrari. And at one point in time, I joined the Ferrari club. It cost me $125, which I didn't have. But I got a small little card.
You
that
didn't have
says,
$125?
No. I'll tell you more about that in a moment here.
Okay.
I got a little card. It said, "You are a member of the Ferrari club." I framed that thing. I had that up on my wall for like 30 years.
Wow.
My treat every week. When you're starting a business, by the way, you have a lot of demands on your financial resources.
Or lack thereof, right?
Yeah, lack thereof, precisely. There's always something that you need to spend it on, and related to business, of course. My treat was I would go to Metro Center. It's a mall here in mid-Phoenix, and there was a little Chinese fast food joint that had tempura chicken legs.
Oh,
you
man.
get 3 of them for $1.68 with some rice. And my treat every Friday evening was to go there, sit by the skating rink. They used to have a skating rink in that
Sure.
building. And eating my $1.68 tempura chicken wings, watching the skaters.
That was living the life.
That was it. That was living the life. The rest of the weekend I was working.
Wow, man. It must be pretty incredible because, we're in one of your buildings here and there's, quite a few employees here, but I mean, what does it feel like to be able to provide someone a nice place to work? And, it's really like their livelihood because the effect of it goes far beyond just the person. We're talking about families and loved ones here. And I know that for me, I've had rental properties in the past. And for me, the feeling of providing someone a home to live in, man, it's the coolest thing ever.
Well, that brings me to the next topic. We initially said that the reason most people get into business is power and money. After that fades, then the thing that you just described is what feeds people to continue in business. And that is the personal growth that they're seeing from the staff and from the people that they're influencing, improving their lives, and being able to mentor them and guide them.
That feels amazing, right?
That's the part that continues to motivate people that I believe overachievers like myself.
That's then my next question that I wanted to ask you, which we're already talking about. But what if you had to choose something? What would you say that you enjoy the most about being the owner of a business?
Well, there are a number of categories. I'm not sure I can put it in just one category. I still feel awkward when people call me sir, for example. And we have we have a foreign population here in the production group, and they're very respectful, although I'm very honored that, they regard me that way. But and you also feel old when that happens. I think, when I started these businesses, I was 33.
Wow.
A different time period.
Oh yeah. Wow. So to backtrack for just a minute, we're talking about, I definitely, and looking back, like you said, I can identify the people that were mentors to me and that impacted me a lot. Mm-hmm. Sometimes these were people that I didn't spend that much time around, but the effect was still just as great. Yeah. But what about so if anybody's out there that if anybody's out there and they don't feel like they have a lot of positive influences around them, what advice would you have for what advice would you have for them?
Well, I think the first thing that I would comment on that is that no one's a victim of their circumstances. There's the term victim, I think, should be banished from the language.
Sure.
You make your own reality. And, if you don't like the person that you're with, you just simply go and find another one, or you go off by yourself. So, again, putting the blame on something external as to why we're not successful, I think, is a misdirection. And it keeps people locked in that mode.
There's so many stories about people that came from really challenging backgrounds that achieved wild success, right?
Yeah. Again, define success, though. Was it personal? Was it business? Was it, physical, athletic? The world is our oyster. We can do whatever we want.
Right.
We just have to dedicate ourselves to something. Now, this is where, again, it gets back to self-discipline. If you want something badly enough, it's not just going to be handed to you on a silver platter. You're going to have to work for it. And the other trick, I think, in life is to turn work into fun. Once that happens, it's no longer work.
That's what we're doing right now.
Well, yeah,
Right.
that's why when I go home at night and,
Yeah.
it's 8 o'clock at night and I'm still working, that's not what I'm doing. I'm having fun.
You're having a blast because
Yeah.
you're creating something.
Right.
We're solving something, right? Okay, so I'm going to switch gears just a little bit here. So
Sure.
I'm 31. Your son, Max, one of my best friends, is 26. So I'm curious, you grew up in a different time than the time we're growing up in. So based on your observations of like the younger generation, what do you think's different, and what do you think might be the greatest opportunity for growth and learning for us?
Well, the opportunities that are currently available are exponentially greater than any time in history.
How so? Well, tell me more.
Well, for example, social media, what electronics has done for our world, the internet. We're essentially, just your cell phone alone is an extension of things that we never even dreamed of when I was your age.
Sure.
So really, the opportunities are far richer than they've ever been before. What saddens me, though, is that the net result is that we have more people that are living as victims or allowing themselves to be enabled without taking charge of anything.
Due to the technology, or in relation to the technology.
I don't know why, and I
Right.
wish I did. We'd have a quick fix for that then.
Right.
We could identify it, we could nail it down. But, the amount of enabling that takes place, you mentioned your generation. What I find that this current generation is one that is really has been enabled far too greatly. They haven't been allowed to test their own strengths. They've been given virtually everything, and they expect that from an employer. We're an extension of their parents. When people ask me, well, do you have a sign-on bonus? I just want to laugh. You're kidding me, right? During the Depression days, people were grateful to get a job.
Right.
And if you didn't have one, you didn't have the support systems. Some people starved and died.
Right.
And that motivated people to take their job seriously, keep them, do a good job, give an honest day's work. Those things are becoming an anomaly.
Do you think that? I think that it sounds like. It sounds like what we're talking about here is grit, somewhat.
Yeah, that's another way to define it.
To take care of business and get stuff done, right?
Sure.
Wow. So, So this is just a general question. What's the best piece of advice that you would offer to young people growing up today that really want success? I know that's a really general question, but if you could offer just one general piece of advice, what would it be?
Well, it used to be, get into an Ivy League college and success is guaranteed. We have way too many doctors and lawyers these days. I believe in education, but I believe in focused education based on someone's direction in life and some weaknesses. For example, I realized that getting into business, you really need to understand people, especially in sales.
Oh, absolutely.
And customer service, So you take psychology courses. You need to be able to understand what's going on inside a person's head in order to alter their behavior, change their buying habits, or turn them into customers.
Right.
So, that would be one area of advice. If you're a person that doesn't like working with people, emotions confuse you, then I would say take the technical path.
Sure.
Get into engineering. Work with things instead of people. But I think there's been too much emphasis placed on, the 4-year degree. It
Really?
just seems, I think that there should be more emphasis on developing the skills necessary for what you consider to be your preferred life's calling.
Absolutely. And that's not always addressed by just simply a 4-year degree, right?
Exactly.
I think a lot of people, honestly, a lot of my friends, a lot of people I know graduating, they've gotten the classes down, they've gotten their degree, but there's just some life skills I think that are really important to learn about interacting with people. And just like you were talking about what motivates others, I mean, regulating emotion and really just all that kind of stuff is super interesting. Awesome. Well, this has been awesome. I hope everyone's enjoyed this discussion. I know it's a little bit different. One of my favorite things to talk about is mindset, and I'm always wanting to learn and grow, and I know everyone out there is the same way. Definitely, if anybody watching this has any questions, I know Pete and myself would definitely want to invite you to send those questions in, and we can address them. So that's a wrap, everyone. Thanks, Pete, for this. This was very fun.
Oh, you're more than welcome. And did you guys notice that not once in this podcast did we say the word Tesla?
Oh my goodness, we didn't say the word Tesla once?
But we did say it once just now. So for those of you that are Tesla viewers, we'll also be generating more Tesla content. There's a really cool one coming up that we recorded this morning, actually.
Yeah, we've got a lot of really cool stuff coming. I'm really excited about that. So thanks, everyone. Go out and make the rest of your week fantastic. We'll see you later.
Thank you.